They lied to you. They told you demons were just metaphors, symbols of human vice, relics of old religions. They said Solomon was a saint, that his wisdom came from heaven. But what if the truth was far more dangerous? What if the power he held came not from God, but from a deal he should have never made? Buried beneath centuries of religious censorship, the Lemegeton isn't just a dusty grimoire. It's a survival guide for dealing with 72 entities who don't ask for worship. They demand respect, obedience, and payment. This isn't fantasy. This isn't fiction. It's a blueprint that still burns in secret rooms and late-night rituals across the globe. And the most terrifying part? It's written like a manual, calm, clear, precise, almost polite. In this video, you'll discover what the Lemegeton really says, what's between the lines, beneath the seals, behind the voices. You'll learn the names they don't want you to speak, the powers you were never supposed to understand, and why invoking these spirits is as dangerous as it is addictive. Don't blink, don't skip, because by the time you finish this, the demons won't be legends anymore. They'll be options. The forbidden grimoire, the cursed origin of the Lemegeton. You can almost smell it, a scent of old parchment, burnt incense, and something else. Iron, maybe blood, lingers in the air. The Lemegeton wasn't meant to be read by just anyone. Hidden for centuries behind temple walls, buried under the sand of forgotten cities, this grimoire was passed like a whispered secret among mystics and madmen. It wasn't kept secret just because of its content, but because of what happened to those who dared to use it. In the sweltering heat of a desert tent, under the flicker of an oil lamp, a man once chanted its words and never spoke again. They say the book breathes when opened, that it chooses its reader, not the other way around. There's no author, no clear origin, just fragments traced to medieval Jerusalem, where scrolls in Aramaic and ancient Greek were said to hold blueprints for calling forth things that should stay buried. Most copies destroyed by fire, not by accident, by fear, the kind of fear that makes even warlords tremble. Picture a scroll found sealed in a clay jar near the Dead Sea, inked in blood and sealed with wax that still felt warm centuries later. Local imams refused to even look at it. Some said just touching it gave you dreams, the kind you couldn't wake up from. That's the weight this grimoire carries. The Lemegeton isn't just a book, it's a key, and every key needs a door. What lies behind that door is what terrified entire religious sects across the Middle East. Monks from Mount Athos swore it was cursed. Sufi mystics warned of its aura. You'll feel it in your bones before your eyes even see the pages. And when the Crusaders looted libraries in Antioch and Acre, it wasn't gold they feared. It was black ink, scrawled in forgotten tongues, with diagrams that looked like nightmares drawn by children possessed. That's how far the dread of the Lemegeton spread, beyond cultures, beyond languages. People always ask, is it just myth? But let me ask you this. How many myths get hunted down by 3 different religions? There's a story from Cairo, early 1500s, where a scholar tried translating it. Neighbors found him days later, naked in the street, repeating only one phrase, "I saw them." He'd gouged out his own eyes with date tree thorns. Now maybe it was madness, or maybe he read something no human mind was meant to contain. Because that's what the Lemegeton does. It infects curiosity. It invites you to look deeper and punishes you when you do. Here's what makes it even worse. Some of its pages don't stay the same. I'm not talking metaphorically, I mean literally. Pages that shift, rearrange, vanish, or appear depending on the moon phase or the hour it's opened. One man in Mosul claimed the book grew teeth and bit his hand. Laugh if you want, but this wasn't some street preacher. This was a respected historian who vanished 2 days later, gone, like smoke in the desert. His colleagues refused to speak his name after that. And the book? Well, no one ever found it again. See, what the Lemegeton offers isn't just knowledge, it's power. but at a price carved in silence and shadows. It links directly to the infernal, not in metaphor, but in design. There are sigils within that match markings found on ancient Mesopotamian sacrificial altars. Not similar, identical. What does that tell you? Someone, or something, has kept this blueprint for calling demons alive since before Babylon. Not for worship, for control, or worse, partnership, because the book doesn't just describe these entities. It negotiates with them. And maybe that's the most disturbing part. The Lemegeton doesn't treat demons as monsters. It treats them like business partners, lords, beings with kingdoms and contracts. The book's tone is calm, instructional, even polite. That's what gives it the feeling of a trap, like a scam that starts with a smile. Draw this circle, speak this name, offer this token. Sounds simple, right? Until your voice isn't yours anymore. Until shadows move when they shouldn't. Until you start to wonder if your thoughts are still your own. The 72 demons, servants or lords of hell, they're not what you think. These aren't snarling beasts with horns and fire. The demons in the Lemegeton come with titles: Duke, Marquis, Prince. They arrive not in flames but in form, some beautiful, some grotesque, but all with presence. Each one rules a legion, not dozens, thousands, like generals in a kingdom that mirrors ours, but beneath the earth. The grimoire lists 72, not random, not symbolic, precise. They have seals, sigils, voices, and worse, they respond. You call Baal and he hears you. You draw the sign of Paimon, and something in the air changes, thickens, waits. Let's talk Baal, he's the first. That's no accident. Appears with 3 heads, human, toad, and cat. Odd combo? Maybe. But he controls invisibility. In ancient Aleppo, conjurers would whisper his name to disappear from enemies, and they did. Local soldiers spoke of men vanishing before their arrows struck. Was it illusion? Or did Baal grant what was promised, at the cost of something else? Because no demon gives for free. The book is clear about that. Every power has a price. Sometimes it's blood, sometimes something deeper. Then there's Paimon, regal, dignified, almost charming, often depicted riding a dromedary crowned with gold, his voice echoing like thunder in a mosque's dome. He knows secrets, all of them, past and future. Sounds tempting, right? Scholars in Baghdad risked everything for a glimpse of his wisdom. One even offered his daughter as payment. No one knows what happened to her. But his house burned the next day. Nothing remained, just ash, and a circle scorched into the floorboards, still humming hours later. These aren't fairy tales, they're warnings. Asmodeus is another story, a destroyer, a devourer. He's said to be behind lust, jealousy, rage, things that tear families and empires apart. He doesn't offer favors, he feeds, a general in the infernal hierarchy associated with the fall of kings. In Persia, a noble claimed he summoned Asmodeus to crush his rivals. It worked. Within weeks, 3 men died. The noble's name became legend, until he was found hanged, face twisted in terror, a mirror shattered beneath his feet. No sign of struggle, just claw marks on the ceiling. So, who was the real victim? Each demon brings a gift, but every gift comes in wrappings soaked with venom. One grants flight, another wealth, another knowledge of herbs that can heal or kill. These spirits aren't chaotic, they're organized, calculated. Some offer to build cities, others promise to break minds. That's why the Lemegeton calls them by rank, because it's a hierarchy, a structure, just like in politics, in the military, or in corporate boardrooms. They're not wild animals, they're kings in exile, and they remember who gave them that exile. Here's where it gets dark. The rituals don't just describe how to summon, they describe how to command. The book teaches that the magician must stand in a place of authority, speaking not as a beggar, but as a ruler. That's dangerous, because it teaches arrogance. It makes you think you're above them, But what happens when you summon something older than civilization and speak to it like a servant? One mistake, one mispronounced syllable, and you go from master to offering, from invoker to vessel. But what if that's exactly what the demons want? What if the whole structure, the names, the seals, the politeness, is a mask, a performance to trick you into stepping over a line? Because once you cross it, once you believe you're in control, that's when they really move. That's the trap. Of the 72, you think they serve you. But what if they're just waiting, biding their time? Because after all, kings don't kneel forever. Rituals and invocations, the price of calling hell. It always starts the same way, silence. Not the peaceful kind, the wrong kind. Heavy, like something's holding its breath, watching. In the Lemegeton, silence is the first ingredient. No phones, no lights, no prayers, just chalk, blood, incense, and intent. You begin with a circle, not any circle, one drawn with precise angles, sacred names, and sigils copied by hand. Miss a line, it won't protect you. Use the wrong incense, it might attract something else. In the back streets of Damascus, an old man once lit myrrh instead of sulfur. His skin peeled off in his sleep. His house, sealed by the government. They said it was radiation. It wasn't. Rituals from the Lemegeton are performances, deadly ones. They require tools, a consecrated dagger, a black robe, a ring of Solomon, and most importantly, focus. No distractions, no second thoughts. Because doubt is like blood in the water. Demons smell it. That's why the book warns, he who wavers shall not command. Imagine standing barefoot on a cold stone floor, chanting in a tongue older than Latin, watching candles flicker against the wind. If your voice cracks or your heart skips, the circle becomes meaningless. And you become bait. Then comes the seal, drawn in ink, blood, or charcoal. Each demon has its own, unique, elaborate, and strangely elegant. It's not just art, it's a door. And when you trace it, you're building that door. Some practitioners use goatskin, others prefer ancient papyrus. In the bazaars of Cairo, I once saw a seller with scrolls he swore were made of human flesh. I didn't touch them, but they were warm. Seals must be respected because if they fade or distort during the ritual, the entity won't come through. Clean, it'll come. Fractured, words matter too. The chants in the Lemegeton aren't poetry, they're programming code. Miss one syllable, and you crash the whole thing, except instead of a broken app, you're dealing with a broken mind. There's a recorded case in Beirut, 1948. A French occultist tried summoning Bune. Halfway through, his tongue locked mid-sentence. He screamed for hours in 3 languages simultaneously, none of them his. He died days later, with ink leaking from his ears. Locals burned the room and refused to speak of it again. That's the weight behind every word in that book. Offerings vary. Some demons ask for wine, others for bones. Some want things you don't even understand, memories, loyalty, a piece of your soul's light. One particularly cruel rite asks for the blood of someone who trusts you. The grimoire doesn't explain why. It just lists it, coldly, like a grocery list. And that's the part modern minds can't grasp. These rituals aren't symbolic. They're transactional, and if you don't pay the full price, you don't just fail, you owe. And owing a demon is like owing a mob boss with no concept of time. There's also the physical toll, nights without sleep, fasting. The body weakens before the ritual, on purpose. Why? Because a worn vessel is easier to pierce. Practitioners speak of nosebleeds, teeth falling out, coughing ash. Some lose all sense of smell for weeks. One even described his shadow moving half a second out of sync. That's what hell's interest looks like, not flames, but fractures in reality. So next time someone romanticizes demon summoning on TikTok, remind them, it's not candlelight and Latin, it's sweat, blood, and silence that stares back. And still, people keep trying. They download PDFs, copy sigils from forums, light candles in dorm rooms. But the Lemegeton doesn't care how modern your apartment is. A mistake is a mistake. And the entities, they're patient, ancient, waiting. Because once a ritual begins, something hears. And once it hears, it remembers. Hidden warnings. Why this book should be feared. It doesn't scream, it whispers. That's what makes the Lemegeton so dangerous. It doesn't terrify with fire and brimstone. It seduces with diagrams, old symbols, promises of power. And tucked between those pages, in writing so faint you need candlelight to see it, are warnings. Not poetic ones, direct ones. Do not proceed if your spirit is unclean. Do not attempt without proper lineage. But most readers ignore them. Because modern minds don't believe in spiritual inheritance or bloodline curses until they wake up choking with bruises shaped like hands they didn't see. There's a tale from Jerusalem, early 1300s. A monk found a copy of the Lemegeton hidden in a sealed clay urn beneath the floor of an abandoned synagogue. He opened it. No ritual, just curiosity. By dawn, he was dead. No wounds. Just this expression, eyes wide, mouth locked open. Locals said it looked like he'd seen something ancient and too familiar. The pages around his body were blank, every word gone. Reabsorbed or waiting for the next reader? You tell me. But the Lemegeton doesn't like being read casually. It demands reverence or revenge. In Aleppo, there was a scholar named Harun, quiet man, brilliant. He read Aramaic, Greek, Hebrew, fluent in dead tongues. When he got his hands on a rare Lemegeton fragment, he ignored the precautions. No circle, no cleansing, no fasting, just reading. 3 days later, he was found walking barefoot into the desert. He'd torn off his eyelids and claimed they wouldn't close. He didn't scream. He laughed, said he'd met the kings below, and they told him jokes older than creation. He never came back. But the sand where he walked never held. Footprints again. These aren't isolated cases. Across centuries, stories echo. A Syrian general who tried invoking demon aid before a battle. Victory followed, but so did madness. A Moroccan merchant who sold a page of the book for silver, only to find his newborn speaking in Akkadian and drawing sigils in his sleep. The warnings aren't superstition. They're survival instructions. Think of it like radioactive material. You wouldn't touch plutonium without gear. So why would you call infernal beings without a shield of faith, blood, and silence? And here's what most readers miss. The warnings aren't just in the margins, they're embedded in the structure. Palindromes that only appear under moonlight. Sigils that rearrange themselves to form the word stop in tongues no one speaks anymore. One page reportedly hums if read aloud in the wrong room. A man in Tehran did just that. His ears bled, every mirror in his house cracked. His wife swears his voice sounded doubled, like someone else was repeating his words, half a second late. She left him the next day. Smart woman. The grimoire punishes arrogance. It rewards obsession with punishment. And the deeper you go, the more it shows you. Not visions, not hallucinations, memories from other lives, other realms. One woman in Istanbul spoke of reliving a ritual from 4,000 years ago, hands not her own, chanting in a cave lined with human bones. She never traveled, never studied history, and yet she described it perfectly, down to the smell. And here's the terrifying part. She said the bones were looking at her, yet for all these red flags, readers continue. Maybe that's the curse. Not the demons, not the madness, but the need to keep turning the page, like it feeds off attention. The more you know, the more it offers. And beneath every warning is a hook. Just one more seal, one more chant, one more favor. And once you reach that point, it's already too late. Solomon's pact, to rule or be ruled. You've heard the clean version, the king, the temple, the wisdom. But there's another version, darker, buried in whispers from Damascus to Sana'a. It says Solomon didn't bind demons through holy light. He bargained, traded something sacred, maybe his voice, maybe his future. No one agrees on what, but all versions say one thing: the power wasn't free, and the ring he used, it wasn't forged in heaven, it was given by them, the 72, or their ruler. And once he slipped it on, things started to change. The wind in Jerusalem grew still, birds stopped singing, and in the silence, something knocked. Imagine a king walking alone at night through his own palace, because he no longer trusts his guards. That's the image painted in older texts. Solomon was revered, yes, but also feared. His servants said his shadow sometimes moved faster than he did, that he spoke languages no one had taught him. And during the temple's construction, workers claimed to see beasts of fire carrying stones, whispering songs that made blood boil. They weren't angels, they were bound, but not willingly. And sometimes they looked directly at the men and smiled. The Lemegeton lists these beings not as enemies, but as assets, and that's how Solomon treated them, like tools. But tools remember. And if Solomon controlled them, then he had to understand them. That means he had to talk to them, not order, negotiate. Some scrolls from Qumran hint that Solomon fasted for 40 days, not for enlightenment, but because the demons demanded it. A test, a payment, or maybe a ritual, because nothing binds the infernal without cost. And the price, it never stays paid. There's a chilling passage in a Yemeni manuscript. He did not fear them, that was his mistake. It suggests Solomon grew overconfident, began asking for more, power over the winds, control over illness, insight into death. And the demons obeyed, until they didn't. One tale tells of him vanishing for 7 days. When he returned, his beard was white, and his eyes refused to blink. He spoke only once. Never asked them their names. A curious statement, considering the Lemegeton's entire structure is built around naming each demon. So what changed? Some say the ring was cursed, that it wasn't a gift, but a leash, with Solomon as the hound, that every command he gave left a mark on his soul, and that's why he wrote the grimoire in code, not to protect it from others, but to protect others from it. After all, if Solomon had total control, why would he need complex rituals, seals, offerings? That's not domination, that's appeasement. Like taming a lion by feeding it meat, not because you're in charge, but because you're afraid it'll remember what you taste like. Even his death is shrouded in contradiction. Some say he died standing, holding his staff, so the demons wouldn't know he was gone, as if they'd turn on him the moment they sensed weakness. That image of a dead king watched by monsters he once ruled is more than poetic. It's prophetic. It suggests his control wasn't absolute. It was balanced on fear, ritual, and relentless vigilance. One slip, one missed offering, and even Solomon, the wisest of men, could be devoured by the very powers he claimed to rule. And yet the book remained, passed through centuries, copied, translated, used. Why? Maybe Solomon wanted others to try, or maybe he had to pass it on like a curse disguised as knowledge, because the pact never truly ends. Not with death, not with silence. It echoes. Every time someone lights a candle, draws a circle, and speaks the first forbidden name. The dark truth: is the Lemegeton still in use today? They say the age of magic is over, that demons are myths and grimoires belong in museums. But that's what they want you to believe. Because if the Lemegeton really had no power, why would private collectors pay fortunes to own copies? Why would governments confiscate it from archaeological digs and call it classified? Something's not adding up. In Istanbul, an underground auction sold a leather-bound version of the grimoire for $380,000. No photos allowed. Payment in cryptocurrency. The buyer, unknown. The room, shielded from GPS. If this is just a dead book, why are people hiding like It's radioactive. Whispers from Cairo to Prague tell of secret lodges. Not the fantasy kind, real societies with rules, blood oaths and rooms sealed with silence. They don't call themselves magicians. They call themselves engineers of will, and they don't wear robes, they wear tailored suits. You might have seen one on a subway platform, muttering with closed eyes, fingers moving as if drawing something invisible in the air. You wouldn't notice unless you knew the sigils. Unless you saw the subtle ring on their left pinky, etched with a design. That doesn't exist on any national flag. In Marrakesh, a hotel staffer swore he saw a foreign man burning black candles at 3 a.m. in the courtyard. No sound, just flame and shadows that moved the wrong way. In Bangkok, a monk claimed a guest in his temple stopped aging for 3 years, then vanished. During a thunderstorm that killed all the fish in the local river. You want proof the Lemegeton is active? Look at anomalies. Look at patterns. Things that science calls coincidence, but locals call traces. And the book leaves many of them burn. Mark's iron sent unexplainable echo in closed rooms. Even online, something stirs. Hidden forums, encrypted threads, images that vanish seconds after loading. Users discuss the rituals as code. They refer to demons by initials. Paimon becomes P9, Asmodeus, ASX, and the seals, scanned, re-uploaded, modified digitally, sometimes animated with motion that mimics breathing. They're building something, a digital temple, and the Lemegeton is its blueprint. These aren't role players. These are real people. Some of them disappear. Others change usernames weekly, as if running from something. You think it's a game, until your lights flicker at 3:33 a.m. Academics stay quiet. Not because they don't know, but because they do. A professor in Beirut once tried to host a seminar on Solomonic rituals. Day 1, he showed the seal of Baal on screen. Day 2, his office caught fire. No cause found, no smoke damage anywhere else. The university called it electrical, but his assistant said the fire started in his laptop. From inside the screen, the seminar was never repeated, and the department removed all references to demonology from its curriculum. And what about the Vatican? The Lemegeton is considered heretical, but not fictional. A priest once told me in a low voice, "We don't deny its power. We deny the world access to it." That's why exorcists are still trained. Why ancient copies are stored under lock and code beneath churches. In Rome, Jerusalem, and Addis Ababa, the church doesn't fear fairy tales. It fears functioning texts. And the Lemegeton is not a myth, it's a manual. One still read, still used, still alive. So next time you hear thunder on a clear night, next time you wake up and swear you heard chanting through the walls, don't. Brush it off, don't laugh, because the book may be closer than you think, not in libraries, not in tombs, but in backpacks, USB drives, inked on the skin of someone standing behind you in line. So now you know, this wasn't just about dusty scrolls and forgotten rituals. This was about power, real, dangerous, seductive power, the kind hidden in plain sight, disguised as myth, guarded by silence. But the question is, now that you've seen what lies beneath the surface, what are you going to do with it? Will you look deeper, trace the sigils, test the seals, or will you pretend you never heard these names, Baal, Paimon, Asmodeus, and hope they forget you too? Because here's the truth. The Lemegeton didn't disappear, it adapted. It hides in modern hands, in digital files, in the thoughts of people who smile just a little too wide, people who know things they shouldn't. Are you one of them now? And if knowledge is the first step, then what's the second? Obedience, rebellion, or invocation? If this video shook something inside you, good. That means you're awake now. And once you're awake, there's no going back. So if you want to keep going, if you want to learn the signs, decode the patterns, and walk deeper into this invisible world, then subscribe to Eyes of the Invisible right now. Hit the bell, because what's coming next makes this look like child's play.